Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is David Halliday, as most of you know, Associate Adjunct Professor of Saxophone here at the University of Utah. Not much to say here. You are in the presence of one of jazz's greatest. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Benny Golson. Yes, sir. You get my age, just sit all the time. Oh, yeah, this is great. Now, this is the first.
This is the first for me. I never had the opportunity to talk sitting in a gold chair. Now I have to say something important. You must meet my friend here, Sharp Radway. Sharp is a pianist, a composer, an arranger, a publisher. Did you bring any of your books with you?
Yes.
That book is a killer. You have to check it out. What's the name of the book? Oh, you took the mic away.
Oh, yeah. That mic's not working. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we'll swing this one. What's the name of the book?
Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
The name of the book is Musicianship 101, What They Don't Tell You in School. And that book is, it's a book of bullet points of do's and don'ts. If you're thinking about pursuing a full-time career in music, you'll find a lot of advice in there and helpful tips. So again, it's Musicianship 101. My name is Sharp Radway, O-E, Sharp Radway, just as it sounds.
Can I ask somebody to take the bass off? The voice will carry better without the bass.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's him. Yeah, I found that to be true. Well, it's one question that I don't have to ask, and that is, why are you here? We know why you're here, but it can be for many reasons. And you're here to engage yourself in a learning process. And it's good. Learning processes usually take place in your youth, not an old booger like me. See, my career is behind me, but yours is all ahead of you. And since none of you are prescient, that means to have the ability to read the future. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but you know what you want to happen, and you're here to make it happen. And that can be like an adventure, because there are going to be a lot of things that you might not understand and that you will come to understand and even experience those things in life. And what do you want to do? What kind of music do you want to engage in? I assume that's here. Yeah, when I was in college, oh, what a drag that was. The music department, of course, we're talking about eons ago. It was like a hymn book. And that's the kind of harmony we dealt with. They didn't know anything about raised ninths and flatted fifths. Yeah, but this is the day. And I must tell you, you're in a privileged position. There's a lot of the things we learned during that time. Even though we were in college, we had to learn by earballing, trial and error, and things like that. So that means that what you need, not always good performers, you need good teachers. Now, when I went to Berkeley years ago, there were a lot of students who wanted to be teachers. And some people might think, what a drag, that is the teacher. But can you imagine what it would be like without teachers, without good, informed teachers? See, when I was coming up, we didn't have good informed teachers. John Coltrane, you remember that name, John Coltrane, sat in my living room, and our school was the old 78 records, 78 cents a piece. We got those 78 records, they were black and shiny, beautiful. And we finished with it, it was dull and gray. Why? Because I told them the little needles, used to put the needles in there, and you got about 10 plays out of it, maybe. And when it started to get a little fuzzy, take it out, you put another needle in, tone arm back and forth. What did he play in the bridge? What was that chord? What did the piano go back and forth and back and forth? And we finished with that. Played that disc, it was worn out. And that was our school. Of course, it was the summertime. The neighbors hated us and wanted to kill us because we weren't very good. We were trying to learn, but we all have to go through a learning process. And sometimes we might not even know where we want to go. Now, that sounds a little strange. That is where you want to wind up as a performing musician. But wherever it is, you want to get there as quick as possible. And you want to become famous. And when you think famous, you're not thinking of money. Now, that's not strange. That's just the way it should be. You're thinking about the music. Because I remember when I was starting out, and I'd make my little gigs, come home, and my mom would always say, "How was it?" And I would say, "Great." And I was talking about the music, and she was talking about the money. Yeah, it was a long time ago. My first gig that I ever made, and I only been playing less than 6 months, but before that I was a piano student. I thought I wanted to be a classical musician. And from the age of 9 through college, I played the piano, used to give recitals, and I heard at 14, I heard that darn saxophone. And that wrecked all the piano aspirations. Yeah. You saw me with the piano, I still love the piano. But in my heart, I'm a saxophone player. Yeah. But there were a lot of bumps and knocks and bruises trying to learn. And the saying was, black people, they always have rhythm. I think I was a single exception. Everything seemed to come so hard. How do you play a solo? How do you know what notes to play? I was all into that. Yeah, and it starts there. But at the same time, you have different levels of comprehension. See, this one might be fast picking up on it. This one might be a little slower. And unfortunately, I don't know if you ever heard about this, there are some that don't have the comprehensibility, even don't have the desire to move ahead and become great. They don't have that comprehension, and they never make it. There were 3 that I can think of in my hometown, Philadelphia. A trumpet player, a tenor player, and an alto player. Oh, they had the bebop glasses, the French berets, the little goatee, the new saxophone cases, and the new saxophone had everything except talent. And talent, the Latin word is sine qua non. That means essential. It's essential that you have the talent. If you don't have the talent, schools, teachers, listening, nothing's going to help. So it's axiomatic that you have the talent before you embark upon your journey. And it's much like a journey because you start here and you go there. And you think that when you're starting out, if I can just go from here to here, I'll be satisfied. And you strive, yeah. And somehow when you get there, you're not satisfied. You want to go there. Well, if I can get there, I'll be satisfied. And you're not satisfied. And you might be like me. I've been playing for years, and I'm still not 100% satisfied. You know, you don't want to become too satisfied with yourself. Once you do, you stop trying. You figure, well, I've got it, and I don't need anything else. And it's like falling overboard of a ship. You fall overboard, and time doesn't stop. That ship sails over the horizon without you. And what do? Metaphorically and symbolically, you tread water as long as you can. Then that's the end. No, you don't ever want to permit yourself to be too satisfied. And some people, remember this, can become too satisfied. Well, what danger is being too satisfied? You stop trying. You don't try as hard anymore. And those people that think they've got it all, something terrible happens. And you know what it is? They're always telling everybody how good they are. Sometimes they are good, but sometimes they're not. How good you are depends on what happens when you pursue your instrument. You don't have to open your mouth. That tells it all. When that stick hits the drum and the hands hit the piano, the saxophone, the slide, that says it all. You don't have to tell anybody how good you are, because that fouls the air we breathe. Have you ever met anybody like that? I was in Miami once, and, well, it was segregated there. Yeah, we couldn't talk with the audience. This is a long time ago. So when we got off the bandstand, we used to have to go sit out in the hallway where the waiters were preparing the food, the drinks, and whatnot. And there was a fellow, he was white, and he had his practice pad with him, and he was always telling us how good he was. Oh, he was doing all sorts of things. And the jam session came on Saturday, and he wanted to know, could he sit in? Oh, yeah, man, you got to let this guy sit in. He must be fantastic. He tells us how great he is. And boy, you see his hands? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It sounded like an automobile coming down a flight of steps out of control. So sometimes you think you're great. And even if you are great, sometimes there might be a kid in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, who can play a little better than you can play, but he hasn't had the opportunity. And that's something else too. No matter how great you are, it doesn't mean a thing if nobody knocks on your door and wants to hear you for your talent. And if that never happens, that means you never get an opportunity. That's what I'm talking about. And if that ever happens, if nobody ever knocks on your door and wants to hire you because of the way you play your instrument, you will wind up playing your instrument for the rest of your life in your bedroom, in the bathroom, in the toilet. That's what would happen. And what I'm saying, no matter how great you are, somebody has to tap into you. They have to know about you. And how do they know about you? They can't know about you as a recording artist. You haven't been on the scene yet. Somebody has heard you and will mention, oh, you remember that guy? I heard him so-and-so and so. Oh, really? And that's how it happens. That's how it happens. And sometimes you get some good opportunities. Now, the other thing is, whenever somebody knocks on your door and wants your talent, you can't tell them, well, wait a minute, give me another few weeks and I'll be ready. When they knock on that door, you got to be ready. This is the time where you get ready, right here, right now. This is the time when you put it all together. And this is a wonderful time. And it so happens that you're living in a time now where you do have great teachers. This is incredible. When I entered college, they wanted to hear me play. So I got up on the platform, the stage, and all the teachers sitting there with my saxophone. And they said, what is that?
I said, it's my saxophone. They said, where's your clarinet? So during the time I was in college, I had to take all the juries and do all the practicing on the clarinet. Well, when did I play my saxophone? I played it in the laundry room at night. But you know what? Cement floors gave me a pretty nice sound. And of course, I had the rhythm section, those washing machines. Yeah, that was it, in the washing room, yeah. But you've come a long way since those days. And I just want to tell you, you're fortunate. Yeah, you got, I mentioned when I came in here, we had nothing like this when I was in college. Oh my. You got a screen for your movies? Oh, incredible. Yeah, it's a new day, new day. And you know, when you don't have teachers and you're earballing things, trial and error, it takes you longer to arrive at where you want to go. When you have a good teacher, it short circuits all of that other stuff. And you get right to what you're trying to do, and it saves time. So as a result, you have kids that can play like the blazes, 16 and 17 years old. Gee, I didn't make any sense until I was in my 20s. Yeah. And then you can make some money. That's changed too. And John Coltrane and I, yeah, we both got hired in a big band. Jimmy Johnson and his ambassadors, 15 pieces. Now we'd come out of my living room and we're playing in front of people. Wow. But we had to play in tuxedos. Well, we didn't have a tuxedo, so every time we played, we had to run a tuxedo. Well, the tuxedo was $4 for the evening. Well, how much did the gig pay? $8. So we made $4 every time we played with the big band. And the music was stock arrangements, the music was corny, and there was no such thing as somebody stand up and play 2 or 3 choruses. Maybe you had 4 bars here, maybe 8 bars here. So and that's the way it was. The music was kind of corny. But we didn't care. We felt that we were moving ahead, and we were, in a sense. But let me tell you what happened, and what can happen sometimes. Jimmy Johnson's son that Friday, because usually we worked on Friday and Saturday, sometimes it's Sunday, and that was good because I was still in school. And John, he was 18, he had just gotten out of the Navy. And the alto saxophone was his first. When I met John Coltrane, he was playing alto. You'll never believe this. He sounded just like Johnny Hodges. Has anybody ever heard of Johnny Hodges? That saxophone player that grew up. That's the way he sounded. He had a beautiful sound on that alto. But he was a student. Now, yeah, let me tell you the whole story. My wife says I talk too much, but she's not here. One day, one of the students that aspired an alto player, he said, there's a new guy that moved into the projects, and he plays alto just like Johnny Hodges. What? Well, that was before Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. I said, do you think you could bring him by the house tomorrow after school? He said, yeah, I think so. So around 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang, and Clarence came in, and John Coltrane, of course I didn't know his name, he came in, and Clarence sat down, and John just stood in the doorway with his horn. And I looked at him, I didn't know what to say. I said, play something. And he took his horn out, and he started to play. And I swear he sounded just like Johnny Hodges. Now, my mother was always there when we had our, I might call them jam sessions, but they weren't. We earned the J later, so our AM sessions. Yeah, but we never heard a word out of my mother. They didn't even know she existed. And this stranger comes in and plays on the sunny side of the street, and we hear this voice from upstairs. Who was that? Her son is down there playing his heart out every day. We never heard a word. I was so hurt. So John joined our AM sessions. And before we could start our AM session, he had to play on the sunny side of the street for my mother. Well, after a while, I got to be a drag because now we heard about Charlie Parker. We were trying to move on somewhere else. And one day after our AM session, I said to my mother, let me try to tell her what we're doing. You know, Mom, Sunnyside Street is fine, but we're moving on now. And somewhere else we want to go and something else we want to hear. And, you know, you're asking John to play Sunnyside Street. We're trying to get a new repertoire, new music in our mind. And I finally said, it's a drag. And she said to me, this is my house. I can ask for anything I want. So John had to keep playing on the sunny side of the street. We laughed about that years later. But we were in this band, Jimmy Johnson and his ambassadors, and we thought we were doing fine. And like I said, Jimmy sent his son by my house to tell me about 6:30, he came by my house to tell me that the gig that we had that night was canceled. Well, he went to John's house too, and we assumed he told everybody, you know, in the band. Everybody didn't have telephones then. John and I didn't have telephones. So John came to the house, and we were just sitting in the living room. But we missed the job. We were looking forward to those jobs, even though the music was corny. And my mother saw us sitting there with this depressed look on our faces, and she said, well, what's wrong? And John said, oh, Miss Golson, we had a job, you know, and it was canceled. Now, my mother, I think she was from Alabama. I think she only went to about the 6th grade in school, so she was non-academic. But she had what people in the South call mother wit, the ability to know things, sense things. I always felt that my mother could have gotten a job at the KGB or the FBI or something like that. And she began to question us. What time did Jimmy's son come by? And I said, he came by here about 6:30. She said, well, what time was the job? I said, 8:30. She said, nobody cancels a job 2 hours before you to play. She said, you know what? I think they're playing without you. And I could hear John. John said, oh, no, Mrs. Golson, they wouldn't do that. She said, if it was me, I'd go up there where it was canceled and see what's going on. I looked at John, and John looked at me. He said, let's go. We went up to 21st and Columbia Avenue, the American Legion Hall. We got a half a block, and we could hear a band playing. John said, Benny, they're playing our music. I said, John, we have to see who they are. They got about 6 big bands, local big bands. So we went up to the door, you know, where you get your ticket, and the door opened. The door opened when the person got the ticket, and we could hear them, but we couldn't see them because you had to go down the steps and across the floor, and they were set up against the wall. So the next time the door opened, we fell on our stomachs. I guess they thought we were having a fit. But there was somebody in my chair, and there was somebody in John's chair. Oh, man. We went back to my house. As soon as we stepped in, my mother said, what happened? And John said, he was almost crying. He said, you were right, Miss Golson. And we went and stood in the living room. We didn't even sit down. And I wanted to cry so bad. And I knew John wanted to cry, but we were too hip to cry in front of each other. So we stood in the living room, and my mother saw all the pain in our face. She came over, she put her arms around both of us, she squeezed us, and she said, don't worry, baby. She said, one day you'll be so good, they won't have enough money to pay you, and we didn't believe her. Years went by, and where were we playing? Oh, Newport Jazz Festival. We were playing the Newport Jazz Festival, and John had just bought that darn soprano, and he had just recorded my favorite things. And our farmer had just put a group together, and we had just recorded Killer Joe. And John and I happened to be in the room warming up, and I was looking for a reed. And he took his horn out of the mouth, and he started laughing hilariously. And of course I said, what? He said, remember what your mother told us? You know, that one day we'd be so good they wouldn't have enough money to pay us. I said, yeah. He said, well, those guys are still in Philadelphia and we're in Newport. And we laughed. Yeah, it turns out like that sometimes. But sometimes it doesn't. And you know, there were a lot of distractions. Usually marijuana. And the guys that were a little older than me said, Benny, you got to try this. It makes you think on a different level. Now, I didn't want anything to interrupt my passage and my journey to where I was. I didn't want it to be interrupted. And I figured out, now if I don't have the knowledge that takes a while to put there, the smoke from a marijuana cigarette going to put it there. And I figured that, marijuana is not going to do it. If marijuana had done it, I would have probably been the biggest junkie in Philadelphia. So I avoided it. And a lot of my friends didn't. Oh, no, not a lot, but some. And they went from marijuana to cocaine. Then the music became subliminal. And the marijuana and the drugs became more important. And the music followed. Some of them overdosed and died. Oh, it was terrible. It was a terrible time. Thank goodness it's changed. It's not quite like that now. There might be some that think that way, but drugs are not going to help your career. It's going to shipwreck it, train wreck it. It's not going to take you to the top. Drugs won't do it. Because if I thought anywhere along the line that drugs would have done it, like I said, I would have been right on it. But it doesn't make me a goody two-shoes. It just makes me wise. And if you refrain, it makes you wise too. Drugs are not going to help you and push your head in with your ability. Your ability comes from somewhere else, not from a needle or a cigarette. Yeah. Just keep that in mind. Oh, you know, yeah, maybe I do talk too much. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Because Sharp and I, we've had a lot of experience. Sharp, maybe you want to say something to them too. Oh, yeah.
I had a question. Well, I've been listening to a lot of your early recordings, like we listened to in the car today.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that so many of them have you and a trombone. Just the two of you. And I just wondered if you could talk about that a little bit. Why you often see tenor saxophone and trumpet more commonly than you would see a tenor and trombone. And I was just curious.
No, it was more tenor and trumpet. You just haven't heard enough. No, it was usually tenor and trumpet. The trombone was, should I really get into that, how that happened? But it was usually the tenor and the trumpet. And before that, sometimes it was either the trumpet or the tenor. Because when I played with a local group, it was a tenor and the rhythm section. And sometimes it was a trumpet, but mostly a tenor or an alto. Sometimes a trumpet, but he had to be pretty good.
What I mean is, though, on your early records, oftentimes.
It just turned out that way. Yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to hear. Yeah, because I had a good trombone that I used, a fellow named Curtis Fuller. He was something else. So I don't want to go into his history. We'd be here all day. But when I heard him play, he sat in the Dizzy Gillespie's band, and I never heard him. And he was right behind me. I'd never heard anybody play trombone like that in my life. And he turned out to be something. We did a lot of things together. We went it was his gig called the 5 Spot in New York. We went in there for 2 weeks, and we stayed a year and a half. Yeah, but it was 2 bands. The other band changed, but we never changed. Yeah, something like that. We had all sorts of people playing with us. Bill Evans was our piano player for a while. Shadow Wilson, our drummer, was for a while. Elvin Jones was our drummer for a while. We had lots of people, but it was always Curtis and me. Yeah. And we got fired. And the reason we got fired, sometimes you can enjoy a good thing. It was, like I told you, it was two bands. And on Monday night at Birdland, they used to, during those years, they used to have a jam session. And they called Curtis and asked him, could he make the jam session? Now, we're working at the 5 spot. And he tells them, yes. So, but here's how it happened. We played a set, and then we jumped in a cab with our horns, not even in the case, with our horns, under our run up to Birdland, wham, and play a set and come back just in time. And one night we got caught in a traffic jam. And when we got back to the club, it was empty. And we got fired. Yeah, sometimes things can be too good. You get greedy. Something else. Do you have any questions?
I was wondering if you could talk about any stories of working with Art Blakey or what it was like.
Oh boy, now you really open up something. Art Blakey, the biggest liar I ever met in my life. But my greatest experience I ever had in my life was playing with him. But the greatest drummer, can you imagine who the greatest drummer was that I ever heard in my whole life? A fellow named Buddy Rich. The style wasn't, but his technique, nobody could touch Buddy Rich. He broke his arm once, and he went on a gig and he played a drum roll with one hand. He could do anything. He was the best drummer. We're talking about technique. I did a record date once, a big band record date, and they had 2 drummers, Buddy Rich and Max Roach. And I said to myself, I feel so sorry for Max, because Buddy had all this, oh, he was incredible. Have you too young to have heard of him. Are you from, did you ever hear him?
Yeah. Oh, no, not in person, just in video.
Oh, boy, that guy. He had a heart attack once, and he was recuperating, and he was playing Birdland with his septet. And he was playing a drum solo, and he was playing so much, I got scared because I thought he was going to fall over dead. He was playing that, and standing beside me was a fellow named Philly Joe Jones. And Philly was standing there with his mouth open, and I kept hearing from him, Buddy, Buddy, Buddy. Yeah, that's the way Buddy Rich was. Okay. Art Blakey, oh, you want to know about Art Blakey. Art Blakey didn't know how not to swing. He came to work once, and he had a tooth pulled, and his jaw was out like this, and we felt so sorry for him. And during that time, he had his regular band and the old band, people like me and Jackie McLean, and he meshed the 2 together. And he would play with the old band first, the new band first, and then the old timers would come out. It was like a presentation. And while he was playing with the new band, Curtis and I walked up and looked at him. We felt so sorry, but he was swinging, it seemed like he was swinging more. Incredible, that guy. And sometimes we'd go to places and they wanted to sit in, and the drummer who was playing, his set of drums sounded like tin cans and pots and pans. But when Art sat down and he started to play, gave it new life. It was amazing he was able to do that. We were playing one gig once somewhere, probably in France, Paris maybe, and Freddy Hubbard and I were standing in the wings. And we both remarked how he was able to do that. He had a certain way that he played with that cymbal and snare drum that no other drummer, not quite like him. Because, you know, drummers have personalities just like horn players do too. And if you're keen enough, you can tell the difference in their styles when they play. Now, when you heard a band like Horace Silver, you always knew it was Horace Silver because he's playing a melodic instrument, and he always gave it the same sound. Or if it was this band or another band, and I could always tell when the drummer was Art Blakey because he played that way. Yeah, and he was inspiring. And when I joined him, I was playing smooth and melodically, and I noticed one night we were playing Cafe Bohemian. He would play these drum, what do you call that? Where it's getting ready to go to the new chorus. Like a 2-bar, what do you call that?
Send off?
Yeah, that send you off to the next 2 bars. And he started 4 bars, and he got louder and louder. So getting ready to throw me into the next chorus, he got so loud that I was pantomiming. Nobody could hear me. And then when we got into the new chorus, he gave a crash, and then another crash, and then another crash. And I said, what is wrong with this guy? And then he felt I wasn't getting it, and he hollered over me while I was struggling to play. Get up out of that hole. Well, I thought to myself, I guess I am in a hole. Nobody can hear me. So that playing that I was doing with that smooth, mellifluous, it wasn't working with the messages. So I had to change. And when I told Freddy Hubbard this story, he said, you too? Yeah, he was demanding. And he was like, you're trying to play and somebody's behind you. Doing like that. Yeah, he was inspiring. That guy made you feel like playing. Ooh, he was something else.
This guy's got a lot of experience.
This guy's got a lot of experience. I'm telling him to talk, and I'm still talking. But I have to tell you, when I heard what inspired me about him was his harmonic concept, what he was able to do on that piano. Then I found out that he was writing. He writes big band stuff. He's a composer. He writes literary stuff. So you'll find out that he's usually with me all the time. And I'm still picking his brain.
I'm wondering if anyone might have a question for me. Yes.
Yeah, suggestions for practicing coughing on piano.
Suggestions for practicing coughing. First, I would say do a whole lot of listening. And let me say this about coughing. As a piano player, that's what we're doing almost 100% of the time. We're coughing for whoever's taking a solo, you provide an accompaniment with the rest of the rhythm section. But even when it comes to your solo, you might be comping in the left hand as you improvise in the right hand. And so it's so important. I think that's the most important thing to focus on as an accompanist, is comping. And so I would suggest doing a whole lot of listening. A lot of listening to drummers, because there's a lot of communication that's taking place between you as a piano. Are you a piano player? Okay, I thought so. So there's so much happening between you and the drummer. And so I would listen to a lot of drummers, I listen to a lot of drum music, actually. And you definitely have to have a good understanding of harmony and chords. I think the volume went down. So I don't want to put my lips on. Yeah, so you have to spend a lot of time with harmony. And you comp different for vocalists. That's a little different than how you comp for a horn player in a small group context. And that's different than what you do in a big band context. Yeah, so it does require a whole lot of listening. Not just the recordings, but you definitely have to listen to whoever's soloing in the rhythm section. There's a lot of responsibility that we have as piano players, right? You have to work with the drummer, especially what they're doing in their left hand on that snare drum. And you want to really look up at what they're doing. Not just on the snare drum, but the entire kit. And then you have a bass player that you're working with. Now, the bass player might have some surprises. He might throw in some chord substitutions for you. So to keep an ear open for that. And then you have to accompany whoever's on the front line, the vocalists or the horn players. And then you have to be true to yourself, you know? So there's a whole lot of things to be mindful of. And you have a great responsibility there. Every time you sit on that throne, you have a huge responsibility. Have I answered your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
One thing I was wondering if you have like practices or just something for like you'll hear an idea and then you go to play it. It's not at all. I don't know if it's something that you do to like kind of work on that connection with your brain and your fingers.
That happens all the time. That happens all the time. But what I do is I just, whatever it is that I'm striving for, I stick with it. I keep going over it and over it again. And I might break it down to little parts. I just keep working on that until I get it to a place where I feel more comfortable with that thing. And I leave room for it to develop in my brain as well. I'll say this though, because we're so different as individuals, the way that you might approach the very same thing, it might be totally different than how I approach it. It might sound different, the way that you sound on the instrument. It's so individual. So I'd also say don't be discouraged if you don't sound exactly like what it is that you're going for. But try to understand the science behind it. Whatever it is that you're striving for, try to understand the science behind it, what makes it work. Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to answer this very quickly. Mr. Golson has been here a lot longer than me, you know. So I'm going to answer it quickly and then pass the microphone to him. For me, the first, and I get this question a lot, you know. I've composed over 1,000 songs, and people ask me quite often, you know, what's your process in composing? But for me, I don't write anything unless I have a title first. You know, there has to be something in life that has inspired me to compose a piece, you know? And so I think of that thing, and then for me, I'll hear the melodies and the harmonies that I associate with that experience, whatever comes to me based on that experience, and I'll write it down. I won't necessarily write a melody first, or the chord changes first, or a drum part first, but I'll let that experience of life guide me. It's a very emotional and spiritual experience for me. And then, of course, I call on the information that I have with regards to rhythm and harmony and melody and arrangement as I compose. And then pass the microphone over to the master so you can hear from him directly.
One, two. When you compose, you can be inspired by any number of things. Surprisingly, it can be a smell. It can be something that you see. It can be the voice of a young kid. There's nothing like the voice of a young kid, that little voice that you hear. It can be looking at your mate, your husband or your wife. It can be reflecting on the love that you have, or the love that you have for a child, or the love that you have for an animal. It can be almost anything. But the thing you have to have, most of all, if you're going to be a composer or a jazz musician, I'm going to ask you, what do you think it is? It's one word that is axiomatic, and if you don't have it, you can get a job as a pocket attendant or a cook or a washroom attendant. You have to have that one thing, and if you don't have it, you can forget it. One word. You know what that word is that you have to have? You have to have it. No, it's not passion. That too, yeah, but not. What's he say? Well, maybe that too. Maybe it depends on you. But no, it's not. What did he say?
Somebody said discipline.
I don't have my hearing aids in. So.
Somebody said discipline and somebody said groove.
Yeah, all of that, but this is more important than any of that. What's this? That too, but I don't think you're going to get it. I was hoping you'd get it. Imagination. Why imagination? Because you're going to create something that had no prior existence. That's what improvising is all about. Somebody asked me once, "Oh, Mr. Golson, are you going to play such and such tonight?" I said, "Oh, yes, we'll play it." And then they said to me, "What solo are you going to play?" I said, "I have no idea." Do you know what solo you're going to play? If you do, find another profession. If people can sit there and hum your solo that you're improvising and putting together, that's not good. No. When you're about to create something that had no prior existence, it's like giving birth. Is the baby going to be fat, skinny, short, tall, ugly, handsome? What is he going to be like? It depends on what you're making. So that takes imagination. And if you don't have imagination, can you imagine? It sounds like you're playing scales all day. You have to have imagination to put something together that had no prior existence. It's a must. It's essential. And if you don't have imagination, everybody can tell by the way you play. Yeah. So it is not usually a problem. We usually have an imagination, especially as children. As children, we imagine all sorts of things. And we're always prefacing it with, "Why, Daddy? Why?" I remember I was talking to my daughter when she was a little kid, and I was talking, and I was saying, "You have to learn the ropes." She said, "What ropes, Dad?" Yeah. You're in a learning process now, and your imagination is going to help you. And your imagination can become refined. Oh, yeah. You say, "Boy, he plays fantastic." But why does he play fantastic? Because he's got a great imagination. Yeah. Why does John sound better than Harry? John sounds better because his imagination is more operative. Yeah. That's right. To know what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. And I'll tell you what else is good. We don't usually think of. When not to say anything. When to take a breath. See, when we talk linguistically, we take breaths. We take breaths. But have you ever heard a person play and it's just a gobble of notes, one after another, and they barely can take a breath? When you take a breath, this is what happens unconsciously. When you take a breath, it gives a listener even an instant, a fraction of an instant, to reflect on what he's heard and what he is about to hear. Yeah, we're talking about a flash in time now, but that's what intuitively happens. Yeah. And another thing, people usually think you prove how good you are, how fast you can play. Wrong. Can anybody tell me why it's wrong? Why is it the fact that playing fast doesn't prove how good you are?
You can play a million notes that don't mean
Talk up so we can all hear
You
you.
can play a million notes that just don't mean anything. But like you could play 2 notes that mean the world.
Yeah, you can play a lot of notes that don't mean anything. You're right. But you know what? Playing slow shows how good you are. Why? Does anybody know why? Speak up so we can all hear you now. It takes more thought to play slow. And when you play slow, if there's any error, everybody knows it. When you're playing Cherokee, at the speed of light, is anybody going to say, I think the third bar in the bridge on the fourth beat, he played a wrong note. Are you kidding me? Who's going to hear that? Well, Dizzy Gillespie said, slow it down slow enough to eat a sandwich in between each beat, and everybody will know where you are. Yeah, playing the ballad shows how good you are. It takes a lot more. And when some people play a ballad, now they just got finished playing Cherokee at the speed of light, they're playing a ballad which is supposed to reveal your inner feelings, your hurt, your love, your regret, your guilt, your sadness. For example, my wife has just died, and I hope everybody can come, and maybe you can bring some flowers. And you know, we've been married 60 years, and I really miss her. And you know, she was a great girl. You don't talk like that when your wife or your husband died. My wife died. I'm so sorry. How I love that woman. That's what a ballad is all about. And the reason I say that, some play a ballad, then they start playing double time and triple time. Now, they just finished playing the slew of notes in Cherokee. Now they're going to play a slew of notes on the ballad. A ballad is a time to cry and lament. It's a different world. It's a different world. And I've heard some great players, they can play the keys off the horn. But when it comes to a ballad, they fall on their faces. They don't get it. And even further back, let me tell you what happened. Did you ever hear of a tenor player named Ben Webster? Ben Webster was playing one night a ballad. And in the middle of the ballad, he stopped. And he was just standing there. Of course, eventually he started to play again. And when he came off, I said, why did you stop? And you know what he said to me? I forgot the lyrics. Back in the day when the ballad was played, the guys used to know the words because the words would inspire certain feelings as they played. And he's thinking of the words and the scenario that's going on, and he forgot the words, and his train of thought was interrupted. Well, we don't do that much today. I don't think of the words. I know a few words, but that doesn't gear me. But that's what happened back in the day, because the ballad is so different. On the fast things, nobody cared about what the lyrics were. But the ballad is a different animal. And my friend here, he understands that. He understands all of that. And he mentioned common. And that's one of the things that attracted to me. The way a person comes can inspire you just like the drummer can or the bass player can. If the person, and it's hard for me to say how a comment should be. It depends on the person, it depends on the tune, it depends on the quality of the musician who are playing the other instruments. It all comes together. But when he hits that groove, man, that comment is right, man. You're in heaven. Paradise, you feel like playing.
Okay, said speak up, so I'm going to speak up a little louder. Yeah, as Mr. Golson was talking about the tendency that some of us have to play a lot of notes, and as he was speaking about comping, I thought back on your question some more. Sometimes the best accompaniment is not playing at all. What you don't play is a piano player or a guitarist. Right away, you put whoever's on the front line way up in front. You know? I like to do that especially when I'm comping for bass players. That's a whole different style of comping when the bass player takes his solo. So sometimes space. No, space is always important. Yeah, it's always important. You just have to know how to use space. And also, you, as an accompanist, you have to have an attitude of service. That's extremely important. You want to serve not only the piece that you're playing, the music that you're playing, but every individual who's on the bandstand with you, and you join together in service to your audience. So you really have to have a servant's heart if you're going to be an effective accompanist. That's so important. Oh yes, that's all.
I think singers need a greater source.
Oh, just tell the story of the song. You know, for me, that's the most important thing that a vocalist can do. You know, there's always an opportunity to show off your skills, but I think the most important responsibility that a vocalist has is to really share the story of the song that you're singing. You know, the person who wrote the lyrics, they had something in mind. They had something that they wanted to share with you or with the listener of that piece. So you owe it to that composer, and you owe it to the audience to tell the story of the song. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think you should ask another question first. Why do you feel like you can't serve the music? You don't have to answer now. Maybe you can think about it, unless if you have an answer now. Oh, all you have to do is spend more time with the music. Yeah, the music will get you where you have to go. You know? Listen more, hang around those master guitar players, you know? Hang around those recordings. Go and see guitar players who know what they're doing. You know? Go and see how they approach comping with the piano. So you said with singers? Well, just, yeah, anybody. That's right, yeah. Just spend some more time with the music. So the music is going to guide you. It's going to help you. Spend time with it. And that's another thing too, as far as comping. Sometimes you'll be comping with a vibraphonist. Sometimes you'll be comping with a guitarist. I've done gigs where I like to comp with both. I remember doing a gig with Jason Marcellus was playing vibes, and I can't remember the guitarist. But we had to figure out a way to make it happen, the three of us together. Oh, and we had a big band with us. So that's a lot of chords going by, you know, but we made it work. Yeah. Is there another question? Yeah.
This can be a question for both of you, but how do you develop your own style or your own sound?
My philosophy is that we all have our own voice and our own sound. We all have our own voice, and maybe it takes some time to develop that voice and that sound. That's my personal philosophy. But I'm going to let Mr. Golson answer that question as well.
That's right. We don't all wear brown or blue suits. We wear different colored suits. We all have our own musical dispositions, and we have to develop that. We don't want to try to develop basing our future and our aspirations on the way somebody else sounds. And you know, have you ever heard, well, of course you have, tenor players trying to sound like John Coltrane? What a waste of time. That's great to honor John Coltrane, and I'm not going to name a name, but one that everybody knows. I wrote him an email once. He was so into John Coltrane I said, you have all the talent to be able to do that, but I keep wondering, what do you sound like? You're doing yourself an injustice by patterning yourself after what somebody else has done. What about you? Forget them. You've got the ability to do and create. What are you going to do that expresses you rather than John Coltrane? And he wrote me back, you're right. I'm going to work on it. Yeah, it's hard to resist sounding like somebody that you admire, but you have to think about yourself. You're going to go to the top by sounding like this guy or that guy. Go to the top sounding like yourself. And here's another scenario. You might find yourself playing with a group. And maybe the piano player, or maybe it's the bass player, or maybe it's the drummer. It's not making it at all. It's just a drag. What is your temperament going to be as you're standing there playing with it? Are you going to scowl and tell him how terrible he is and what a drag it is? If you do that, it's only going to get worse because his spirit is killed. But if while all this terrible stuff is going on, you can give him a smile, he'll give you his heart. And the best that he can do, whatever that is, it doesn't prove anything by turning around and being mean and evil to the people. They're doing the best that they can. And maybe tomorrow he'll be better. But at the moment, he's lacking. But don't kill his spirit. You'll bring the whole thing to a miserable and horrible end. I mean, I've been playing in situations where I wanted to jump out the window. And I'm standing there shaking my head like I'm grooving. And they're giving me all that they can give me. Whereas if I turned around and said, oh, what? That kills the spirit. So don't permit yourself to do that. Permit yourself to go beyond that. Because one day, they might be able to come up. But at the moment, they're lacking. Don't kill their spirit. Any other questions? These are good questions.
I was wondering if you guys could maybe cite some of your influences and like how they have or haven't influenced your playing or the way you think about playing or any of those things.
Yes, but yeah, sure. Yeah. I remember when I went through Coleman Hawkins, Don Byers, Lester Young, Dexter Gordon. Yeah, I was trying to learn. And not only I was listening not only to saxophone players, I was listening to piano players. What are they doing? And guitar players. Yeah, I was trying to get it from whatever source I could get it. But I finally realized that I'm trying to reach in and draw from these sources that it had to be more than that. In the end, that it had to be me. So I had to break away from trying to sound like Lester Young on DB Blues, or Dexter Gordon on Dexter's Deck, or this one on that. You understand what I'm saying? You have to break away from that because you're growing. And as you grow, you want to grow into who you're going to be, not grow into what they are. You don't want to do that. That's cheating yourself. That's glorifying them, but it does nothing for you. So yeah, we all have to do that in the beginning. We draw on different artists because we like the way they play, but as we develop and go on, we begin to get opinions of our own and feelings of our own. And this is natural, so we have to be careful not to stick too close to James and Harry and John over there. Yeah, we don't want to get caught in that. That's a trap. These are good questions. Maybe I should write a book about all this. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You're going to have to speak up for me. non-jazz, I don't think I've ever been influenced by something that was non-jazz, unless it was the other thing that I was talking about, something that you smell or hear or feel, or the love for your mate. If you're talking about those kinds of, are you talking about those kinds of things? Because they're not musical. Because yeah, I think we're all intuitively influenced. That
the emotional integration. A lot of those people don't find other foundations.
Did you use the word emotional? Some people say that music is emotional. I disagree with that. I say that music can be emotional. It depends on what we do with it that makes it emotional. I've heard some music that makes me want to go to sleep. Some music was like mathematics. No, music can be emotional, and it should be emotional. It should be able to touch the deepest grotto of your heart's core, other than reaching the ears. It should be. And if you can do that, you've got something to say. But just to say that music is emotional depends on what we do with it. How well do you drive your car? Some of this monk was a horrible driver. I wanted to get out of the car. That's the way he drove. Yeah, it depends on what you do with certain things. What are you going to do with your talent? How are you going to raise your kids? How are you going to treat your wife? Things like that. Depends on what you do, how you treat it. And music is no different. You can treat it properly or improperly. Mm-hmm. Yes. Killer Joe is an imaginary fellow. Do you want to hear about Killer Joe? Okay, I'll tell you how Killer Joe came into existence. Are you interested?
Yes.
Okay. I came to New York from Philadelphia, which is only 90 miles away, but I came as somebody that was green. I was young and didn't know much, and I happened to be a member. I just joined Dizzy Gillespie. Now, playing with Dizzy, we played Birdland quite a bit. And I noticed that the way the bandstand was set up, the steps, the wide steps coming into the club were facing us, so when the people came in this way, we could see everybody coming in while we were playing. And I used to see these guys come in. They were usually black guys. Their hair was coiffed. They had on, their fingernails were manicured. They had on expensive suits, expensive alligator shoes, and the El Dorado was being parked by the attendants upstairs. And they had a woman on the arm, a woman draped in furs. And sometimes they had a woman on each arm. And they would set the bar up, and they would pay with large bills, and none of these guys worked. I couldn't put that together. I went to Chicago, and I saw something similar. In LA and Boston. Came back to New York, started all over again. Now, the alto player, the first alto player sat next to me. He was an older fellow, which meant that he had been playing quite a while and he had quite a bit of experience. And he saw that I was perplexed because every time I saw this, I had a certain look on my face because I didn't understand what was going on. And he leaned over and confidentially and quietly said to me, "These girls, they all work for him." I said, "Oh, stenographers." No, I still didn't have it right. I said, "At 3 o'clock in the morning?" Because during those days, we went to work at 10 and finished at 4 in the morning. I finally got the message. Yeah, it was all about the pimps. And during those days, I was writing a lot of songs. And everybody thinks I'm a genius. But I wrote a whole lot of, well, they were people used to call them dogs. They were so big, mine were wolves. They were so horrible. But anyway, I set out to write this tune to represent all the pimps in the world. Now, I had 2 chords on my mind, but I couldn't play fully the chords and the melodies that I was trying to write. So I played 2 chords. Would you play those 2 chords in tempo for me? Sure. In tempo. Those 2 chords I played from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. Now I noticed, and I'm humming in my mind was the melody, but my wife could only hear those 2 chords. Now it was the winter time, and she kept leaving the apartment, but she didn't leave with a scarf or coat or gloves or anything like that. She just left the apartment. I found out later from hearing these 2 chords, she was about to throw up, and she had to leave the apartment from time to time to collect herself. So when I finally finished the tune, after 12 hours of these 2 chords, I finally asked her, "What do you think of this tune?" And it was like she was waiting for me to ask her. She said, "It'll never make it. It's too monotonous." Well, I recorded it anyway with Art Farmer. And they started playing it on the radio. People started buying the records. When we show up, Art Farmer and I with our group, the Jazz Tip, they kept requesting it. And the royalties started to come in. After 3 or 4 fur coats, my wife fell in love with Killer Joe. That's how it happened.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you got into writing for television. I know you wrote, a lot for TV, film, etc. I was wondering how you made that transition.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't by chance at all. There was a fellow, Henry Brandt, who used to orchestrate for Alex North, the composer, if anybody remembers him. And I found out that he would give a class if we got a certain, for arranging, if we got enough people together and could pay him for his time. And so a fellow named Jimmy Owens, a trumpet player, he put a group of us together, must have been about 8 or 10 of us. And he was teaching us how to go about orchestrating. And that only lasted 2 or 3 months. It faded away. But I felt that I was learning so much that I wanted to continue with study with him. He was teaching at a college called Bennington. It was a female college, I think, up north somewhere. But he would come home on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. No, Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. And so I went over, he was in Brooklyn, and I went over and I studied with him privately. And this guy, he is the one that's, if anybody remembers the picture Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, you remember that? Some people think they don't remember. Yeah, he orchestrated that, and he orchestrated other big films. And he was my teacher. And now I'm trying to put the things in order. There was a film made in Sweden, and they wanted somebody to write, they wanted him to write the score. And he was too busy, and I was one of his better students, and he recommended that I do it. So I got assigned to write the music, compose the music for this film. And I did. And I brought the score back and let him hear it. He was impressed. I even used the free music, the things that he used to do, just give him certain notes and tell him to do this or do that without writing the actual notes. And Quincy Jones, yeah, I tell the whole story. We used to live in the same building. He was on 6 and I was on 4. And then he went out to Hollywood and he started writing. Well, I'd been studying with Brandt, and I told him, you know, I'm writing and learn all these things and different methods and everything. Do you think there's a possibility that I could get started? He said, well, come on out and see. So I moved from New York to Los Angeles. And he put me in touch with his agent, Peter Faith. If you remember Percy Faith, who used to write this, record this beautiful music. It was his son, and he was an agent. And he became my agent, and he took me to Universal Pictures. And what was the first thing I did there? Pigs and Thief with Robert Wagner, that's what I started on. And then I went to 20th Century, and I did, I did MASH. I did MASH for 3 years. I can't remember the name of that show. But I began to do different shows in Colombia and different places. And that's how all that happened. Yeah. And it's strange, when you go out there, they don't ask you, can you? Right? They just assume that you can. But everything had to happen at a certain time, and you had to make sure that it happened at that time. I was going into advanced mathematics to make things. Then I found out that somebody had written a book about it. It's called Film Timing. Nothing but times in it. And that saved my life. I latched on to that. And then I had to learn to work with the click track, where everything is going to be right on it. You follow that click track. But you don't get much emotion if you're going to the click track. So then I went to the old school of free timing. No click track, just what you saw, but then what you use is streamers. The person that handles the film, they put a mark on it. And it can be a long mark or a short mark. And when they run the film, that mark comes across slowly or fast. But when it gets to the right side, that's where you're supposed to be catching what you're doing. And that'll give you a chance to slow down a little, get up the tempo a little, because you know that streamer's coming and you follow the streamer. And so that's what I was doing, and they were impressed because everybody was using the click track, but I felt that I got more emotions by using the streamers. And one thing led to another, and that's how that happened. Oh, yeah.
Hi. So how do you choose, or how do you go about choosing what songs you record? Since you said that your wife didn't think that Killer Joe would be good, but you decided to record it anyways. So what made you decide to keep going?
Because that's the way I felt it. I felt that that's what I wanted to do, and I did it, and I figured, well, I'd take my chances. You know, I had no guarantee. If there were guarantees, my thinking would have been like, oh, think I'll write a hit today. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like that. When it happens, you know. And what happens is people hear it, they like it, they request it, they buy the recordings if it exists, and when you show up, they want to hear you play it. The royalties start to come in. That really tells you what's going on. That's incredible. That's when you know, because I wrote a lot of them where nothing happened. So I'm not a genius. Yeah, I wrote more dogs than successful things. The Maharaja and the Blues, that came to my mind somehow. Nothing. On finger popping and hip shaking. Nothing. Yeah, it happens like that. Yeah. Everything I touch is not a success. Believe me. No, it happens like that. And another thing, you don't want to be discouraged by disappointments. Life is not such that everything is going to be perfect. It's not. Life is not like that. Not even in marriages. I met my first wife and married her, and it was a disaster. And my second wife, paradise. I've been married to her for 60 years. Nobody like that. Yeah, you can make mistakes in marriage and everything else in life. It depends on where you go and how you approach things and how the other people react to it. Yes?
As far as the royalties aspect of music goes, I've heard a lot of people talk about starting their own LLCs so that they can actually own the music and get most of the percentage of income comes out of that. And I don't know, did you start your own publishing? You did?
I own all of my music. At one point I didn't, but it cost me some money. I had an attorney because I was living in Los Angeles. I had an attorney to come from Los Angeles to New York, and he bought everything back. So everything that has my name on it, I own. But in the beginning, it wasn't quite like that. And yeah, I have my own publishing company. All of that.
Who did you have to buy it back from?
Pardon?
Who did you have to buy the music back from?
From individuals. There was one person in London. I'd written a song for Whisper Not, and he decided he wasn't going to pay any royalties. And I said, "Oh, you're not?" So I had my daughter to get in touch with him. Yeah, people. I had one person one time took the title of my tune off and put his title on my tune, and was going to keep the royalties. Yeah, you have to be. Yeah, there's some scoundrels out there. Yeah, you have to be careful. Yes.
I know you wrote the tune, I remember Clifford. I was wondering if you could elaborate on your time.
I remember Clifford. That's what I always say about that tune. I wish I had never written it. And the reason I say I wish I had never written it, I wish he hadn't been killed. There would have been no reason to write it. Yeah. But that tune, like I told you, I used to write sometimes 2 or 3 tunes a day. It didn't amount to anything. We had 2 weeks, I was with Dizzy Gillespie. We had 2 weeks in Los Angeles. We had left the Apollo Theater in New York. And I thought, well, since we're going to be out there, maybe I could write a tune to help people to remember Clifford. And it took me the full 2 weeks to write that song, because I knew Clifford very, very well. And I wanted every note, I wanted every interval to be Clifford Brown. So it was a slow process. And I came to work one night. It was toward the end of the 2 weeks, and I brought my uniform because I knew I wouldn't be going back to the hotel. And Dizzy happened to come early. So it was just the two of us there, and the bartender washing glasses like you see in the movies, the bartender washing glasses. And I said, since he's here, maybe I should ask him what does he think. So do you have time to hear something? And I told him I promised writing something from Clifford Brown. He said, yes. And he put his trumpet on the table, and I started to play. And as I'm playing, I'm wondering, what would he think about this tune? And he opened his trumpet case, and he took his trumpet out. I said, oh my goodness, he doesn't even know the tune, and he's going to try to play it. But he fooled me. He took out a plastic flask of kerosene that he used to lubricate his valves. And while I'm playing my heart out, he was lubricating his valves. I'm saying, oh, man. And then to make matters worse, somehow he had to pour some down the trumpet, and then he blew into it. And it got all over me and the piano. And I finished, and he put the trumpet down. He said, Benny, that's beautiful. What? What is it? What is it called? I said, well, I don't have a name for it, Dizzy, but I'm thinking about calling it maybe I Remember Clifford. And then he said to me, I got a record deal coming up with Norman Granz. And Norman Granz is one of the ones that recorded that series called Jazz at the Philharmonic. He says, I've got this recording coming up. Can I record it? Now, that time, Diz didn't know that when I was in high school, I used to have his picture on the wall, the foot of my bed. So that when I woke up every morning, I could see Dizzy Gillespie and then dream my imperial dream one day maybe I'd be good enough to be playing with Dizzy Gillespie. And here my hero had come down off of the wall and asked me, could he record one of my tunes? I couldn't believe it. Yeah, and I was young and stupid, and I thought, you know, you had to be hip, so you drop one shoulder, let it dangle and knee a little bit. And I said, yeah, I was cool. But we had a 19-year-old trumpet player from Philadelphia, my home. It was really something. And Blue Note latched on to him. And he had a recording session coming up, not in a month, but 2 weeks. And he wanted to record I Remember Clifford. And he was the first. And that was a late Lee Morgan, 19 years old. He recorded I Remember Clifford. Dizzy was the second. And there was a trumpet player named Donald Byrd. He was the third. And that fourth recording, I got a surprise because Clifford was a trumpet player, and I thought it would be a trumpet piece for trumpet players. Sonny Rollins recorded it. Wow. And then after that, I lost track. About 10 years ago, more than that, I went to Japan with Ron Carter. And while I was there, the Japanese, you know, the Japanese are punctilious people. They cross every T, they dot every I. And if any one of them is a jazz fan and walked up to you and said to you, oh no, you say to them, sorry, who played third alto with Benny Goodman in 1937? Wham, they tell you like that. How are those people like that? And they posed a question to me, Mr. Golson, do you know how many recordings there are on I Remember Clifford? I never thought about it. No, I don't. Says over 200. And I said to myself, how do these guys know that stuff? So I went back to New York, and next year, a New Yorker asked me that. How many tunes, how many recordings are on it? Well, it was over 400 then. And a couple of years ago, it was over 500 tunes. Now I found out among musicians, they play this tune at funerals, they play it at weddings, they don't play it at divorces. And they're still recording it. I remember once I was in Copenhagen, and we were outside of the club. I was talking with this musician, and his wife had died. And they played I Remember Clifford. And he was telling me about it, and he was so emotional. He was so emotional about it. Both of us were standing in front of the club crying about I Remember Clifford being played at his wife's death funeral. Yeah, that tune has been around a while, and it seems like it won't die out. It's incredible. Those things happen sometimes. You know, and some people ask me sometimes, Mr. Golson, what is your favorite tune that you have ever written? And my answer is always the same. I haven't written it yet. No. You know, when you do something, do you stand there and pet it and idolize it? You know what that's like? That's like driving a car and looking out the back window while you're driving. You pass that, and you have to see what's up ahead. And me, I want to know what's up ahead. I don't want to stop at Killer Joe and have to rub. I want to see what else is behind those closed doors. There's some other things, and I don't know everything. As an old man, I'm still learning what's behind those doors. So I haven't written it yet. Maybe I'll never write it, you know. But it's great trying. Yeah.
You've got about a couple of minutes left. is there anything you want to say to wrap up, or you want to take one more question, or?
Yeah, some more questions if you have any. Yeah, okay.
Could you tell us
Speak up now.
Could you tell us anything about Philly Joe Jones or what he was like?
Oh, can I? Are you kidding? That's about things I can't tell you about Philly Joe Jones. Yeah, we were in a group together. Now, I'll tell you some things you don't know about Philly Joe Jones. We worked in a local group together, and of course he played the drums, but you'll never guess what else he did in the group. He was our vocalist. Yeah, he could sing, and he could play the piano after a fashion, and he could play the bass after fashion, and he wrote some of the music. He was very talented. But if Philly Joe had not become a musician, I'm sure he would have been in Alcatraz. Let me tell you just one small thing that he did. We were playing in a club in South Philadelphia, and he lived in West Philadelphia. And after the gig, he was going to get a cab home. So he gave the cab driver an address 2 blocks from where he lived. And when they got there, he jumped out and ran because he wasn't going to pay the cab. But what he didn't know is that that cab driver had been a track star. And he took off after Philly, and he caught him. Do I have to say any more? He beat his butt. Yeah, that was one of the things he did. He did other things too. Yeah, but he was something else. Philly Joe was an imaginative drummer. I mean, you play a solo, and you take a breath. You have to take a breath sometimes. And you take a breath, he would give you a rough or flam tap or something to set you up for your continuation. And that was always like a boost forward. I call him a listening drummer. And way down the line, he called himself, he said to me, "I am your drummer." That was Philly Joe Jones. Yeah. Oh, another thing you knew. Before he became big time, he used to drive the tram, the streetcar, number 23 streetcar from South Philadelphia all the way up to Germantown. And Max Roach used to come over and stand with him while he's driving, and they'd be talking drum stuff, you know. And what he did, I have to tell you this. It was rush hour on 11th Street, and that number 23 streetcar passed a club called the Downbeat Club. He came abreast to the club and stopped the streetcar, opened the doors, got off the streetcar, and went up into the club. And everybody's enraged on the streetcar because the driver's gone into the club. He went to the club to do something, I don't know what it was. And when he came back, that streetcar boy, he ignored him. Shut the door. Yeah, only Philly Joe. Anything else? Well,
I was wondering if you could speak on your experience with Freddy Hubbard.
Freddy Hubbard, yeah, I can say a lot about Freddy. Freddy Hubbard, he played pretty good piano. Very competitive. Very competitive. Hear somebody play. I got to go home and practice. He and Son Stitt was like that too, yeah. He always felt that he wasn't playing good enough. I'm going home and practice. He wanted to be number one. And he went at it like that. It wasn't about the money, it was about musicality, the ability to do certain things. I remember I wrote a tune once. It was kind of difficult. And I struggled through it, and he played that tune like he wrote it. I mean, the way that guy would have thought. And I'm talking about imagination. And that's what it takes. The way he handled things. And he used to do strange things when he was playing sometimes. Sometimes, you know, you might take the trumpet. He'd take the trumpet out of the mouth and spin around. His body would spin around. Yeah, he did strange things. Played right to the floor. Yeah, Freddy Hubbard. Listen, he had a lot to say. Of course, there were a lot of trumpets that had a lot to say. You ever hear a trumpeter named Red Rodney from Philadelphia? When he was 17, tremendous, and he wound up playing with Charlie Parker. We had a lot of people. Did you know that Stan Getz was from Philadelphia? Did you know that Bud Powell was from Philadelphia? Yeah, a lot of people from Philadelphia. Philadelphia and Detroit have the crop of musicians. Philadelphia and Detroit, a lot of musicians from those two places. Of course, in other places too, but they have to bring in the crop. Well, if there's nothing else, I just want to tell you, never, if you decided that you're here to learn something and that you want to go somewhere and be this or that, don't stop pursuing it. And don't be discouraged by disappointments, because life is full of disappointments. You step over those disappointments and you keep going, if you believe in yourself. And don't try to pattern yourself after somebody else. That serves no purpose at all for you. With that kind of determination, move ahead. And whatever of you that I would hear for free today, tomorrow I might have to pay big bucks to hear you. See, and that's the way it should be. I wish you the best.